This is a walkthrough of Activity 5-6, Determining Effective NTFS Permissions. Why is this important? As the book describes, in previous versions of Windows NT-based server operating systems, the NOSs, it was very difficult to try to determine. You would actually have to go through users and groups and then go folder by folder to try to figure out where there may have been a breakdown, a mismatch in effective permissions, in those permissions that are determining whether a user can get in or not. And any mismatch, a deny here or an allow there, could be very difficult to find and would circumvent what it is you're trying to do. So they later added this wonderful little tool called effective permissions, and it maps the effective permissions for a user at any particular part of the tree, and I'll give you an example of that. So the book talks about using this, test properties, going into advanced, using effective permissions. So we're going to follow through and then we're going to show examples of where effective permissions changes and how you can use that to troubleshoot if a user is having an issue accessing a resource. So we start with looking at our test folder, go into the Security tab, say Advanced, and effective permissions. So we're now looking for the effective permissions of this resource, and we hit the search and we would say Moira, which is the first one we want to look for, Moira Cohen, and this lists our effective resources, what she is allowed to do at this point. Traverse folders, which really means just that, be able to go across folders. She's allowed to browse across successive folders up and down in the directory tree. She can list folders and read data from them. She can read attributes, and I mean all of these are, and she also has the ability to read the permissions. Notice she can't change, she can't take ownership, but she can read. If you remember, we had explicitly denied the ability to read permissions from here. Read permissions because we made a change to the group. So this is looking at the affiliations of that user account or that group account between all the different groups and the different groups it is part of for a user account, or one group, for example, domain local groups. You have many global groups, for looking at the effective permissions of that group. So the other thing was to see that you can actually do this for groups as well. So go back to Security, Advanced, Effective Permissions, and we search for marketing users. And we see the same thing. Notice they have read permissions for our old test, but if we come up here, because you remember we made a change previously, they don't. So for users or groups, using effective permissions, again, that's telling you the effective permissions at that point. So for example, if we look here on the E drive, or if it were the D drive, this goes beyond what the book is talking about, but we can say, again, effective permissions. We notice that create files, write data, she doesn't have the ability to do, but does have the ability to read permissions at this point in the game. Whereas if we checked in a folder where we were trying to restrict a little bit earlier, she may have some permissions but not others. So this is just an example of showing you a very nice tool if you're trying to troubleshoot permissions, NTFS permissions specifically for users and groups on various folders and resources. This concludes our walkthrough of Activity 5-6, Determining Effective NTFS Permissions.